And we're back for part 2.
Oh, yeah. Welcome back to the Patreon party. It never stopped, baby.
Oh, yeah. Now I couldn't think of a way to rhyme into what we were talking about. But, yeah, so last we were talking about some of our favorite films we saw this year. And I think to follow up, I wanted to talk about any series we've been watching. Obviously, we talked so much about streaming and how much we don't like streaming, and yet it's such a backbone of
Right.
everything.
And yet without it, we wouldn't have a
along.
podcast.
Honestly, not even a little.
Right.
So in terms of series we've watched, I'm double checking to make sure. Moon Girl came out this year, right? It wasn't 2 years ago?
Oh, yes. That was this past year. Mm-hmm.
Yes, which is funny because they just finally started showing trailers for season 2.
Did they just have like a premiere event or something for? Oh yeah, like if season 2 just came out.
Right. It's officially, so they're doing it. This is so dumb. They're doing it. Like they're doing a channel. Like they're doing it on Disney Channel, like weekly going forward, or they're like one new episode every day for a bit. But also, they're dropping 14 of the 28 episodes on Disney Plus tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, the creators have been very candid about like, oh, hey, please make sure you watch it as soon as possible because that might decide whether or not we get a season 3. And it just really underlines the problem of like, and other people have talked about this. The problem with streaming of like. They're so dependent on, like, so much of, like, why all these executives went all in on streaming is because they saw how, like, boom everything on Netflix is.
Yeah.
How, like, quickly, like, those early, like, original series, like, completely blew up, like Stranger Things and such. And we're like, we want that. And then realize that's not how anything works, especially when everyone's doing, like, that, the instant success market on that front has already been got.
Right. And I don't think Disney Plus has a long-standing series in the ways that Netflix does. Like, not even a little bit. Like, I feel like it's all... Maybe High School Musical, the series? Is that, like, their... which I cringe at.
Absolutely not.
But, like, in terms of, like, having... an exclusive... Right, because that's just on Disney Plus. That's not on Disney Channel, is it?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so...
Not to my knowledge, anyway.
Right, so that would be the closest thing to, like, the kind of shows that Netflix puts out that, like, has years on years of like, episodes built onto it.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the problem. It's also, like, the underestimation of, like, you have to... They simultaneously want, like, water cooler big success, but also don't seem to understand how any of that works. Because they're like, oh, we won't market things. We'll just kind of shadow drop them and boom, success. And it's like, that's not how anything works. If you don't put in the work and you don't have patience, you either have to have a lot of patience or you got to put in the work. And they're kind of just refusing to do either. And it's like, well, then you're just wasting money and everyone's time and hurting creatives.
Right. And, like, can you... First of all, like, these series, like Stranger Things or, like, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. Is White Lotus on Netflix?
I literally forgot about that. No, that's...
But, like...
That's White Lotus.
There's a bunch of these, like, shows that Netflix popularized, but they're new content. Like, they're not based off of IP. Like, and all Disney has to work... Like, all of Disney's series have been off of existing IP, like the damn Santa Claus things.
Shoot, you're right. I haven't really thought about that, but it's like, yeah, God, every single one of their they do not do.
They haven't invented anything new. I'm trying to think of a
single. Yeah, right. I'm trying to think of a single original. Because Better Nate Than Ever was a book, which was funny because are you familiar with the plot
American
of that?
Born Chinese? Yeah.
Yeah. The plot of Better Nate Than Ever is this kid finds out they're doing auditions for an E.T. the musical, and they need a kid, and he's like, "This is my big break." I think he lives in Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay.
So him and his friend like head off to New York to hang out with his aunt, who's like the classic like actual actor of like, oh, I get roles sometimes, but then the rest of the time I'm like working in a kitchen.
Yeah.
You know, I'm in a catering service.
Right.
But it's funny because Disney bought it. They and they're like, we're not gonna ask Spielberg to give us the rights to this. So they're like, Lilo and Stitch, the musical.
Oh my gosh.
I appreciate it because it's funny because they have him in a full blown Stitch costume, and it's like, yeah, that is kind of just how modern Disney theatrical would do this, huh? But
Right.
two, also, he becomes like internet famous, and he's like, you're gonna see me on Broadway, matinees once a week, and maybe two if someone's out, and it's like. I appreciate that they have like as a show it gets weirdly into like the politics and business end of theater where it's like
Right.
yeah, he's not going to be on 8 days a week. That's not, you can't do
Right.
that with kids.
Right, exactly. Matinees. Did you watch the show?
Matinees and sometimes it was a movie. It was really cute.
Oh, I thought
was
it was
like-
a series. Oh, okay.
It kind of, I mean, again, it's another thing that bums me out about streaming. I'm like, that would have been like a $20 million movie. It would have just cruised along for like an entire season on like, you know, it would have been a nice like March drop, been in theaters until May when all the blockbusters come in, and everyone would have had a nice time with it. But I digress. In terms of series, I know the one we both saw was Fiona and Cake. We haven't really talked about that on the area, have we?
Oh, I keep forgetting. Yeah. I would, because, geez, I was really racking my brain. Initially, I was like, oh, I feel like you've watched a lot more series this year than I have. At least, like, new series for 2023. But, like, I totally forgot about Fiona and Cake. That seems like a long time ago. That was, like, the height of summer. Was it not? Like,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, no. I don't know about you, but I still kind of want to go back to it because it really was. That was, in terms of water cooler moments, that was an experience.
Yeah. And I mean, we really should go back to that. I'm still voting for a Cartoon Network month in the year 2024. And I think that would be a good candidate in some capacity. But, like, in the future in general, yeah, I definitely would like to go back to that with like, you know, in depth. I also need to, like, really rewatch it and dig in again. It always takes me, like, 2 watches to really, like, take something in.
Right. Yeah, I was so amazed that you stuck with it because I truly underestimated so severely how, like, in deep with the lore it would be. I
Yeah.
really did, you know, like, fart me for really thinking, like, oh, it's just going to be a cute, like, side adventure. You know, it's going to be like the episodes where it's like a fun little, like, multiverse sort of like, hey, what if this was that? What if we gender swapped
Hey.
everyone? Oh,
It'd be
wow,
what
wow.
if,
And then
yeah.
yeah, but instead, no, it's like the end of the what if where all the pieces are smashed together. Because
Right.
it's like, oh, basically every theoretical scenario, like, you know, they basically do, like, an entire universe for every single, like, mini-series they did in Adventure Time. Because, like, the back half of the show got really mini-series heavy. So there was, like, stakes where it's, like, all of these vampires descend on the land and Marceline has to fight them. There's Elements, which is all about, like, oh, the 4 elements, candy, ice, slime, and, what's the...
Slime?
Candy, oh, fire. It's fire, ice, candy, slime. The joke is candy and slime are there. Right. And, like, they just completely eat the land, so you get all kinds of fun variants. So, like,
Right.
Marceline becomes Marshalline, the campfire queen, and she's just a stack of marshmallows. Stuff like that, where I'm like, I don't even know how to explain some of this shit to you.
Right.
But, yeah, I honestly was surprised,
went
because,
well.
like, I was going... Oh, yeah. I was genuinely surprised how many series I ended up watching. I'm not a big series guy. Not a
Really?
big series guy. Yeah, no, I'm kind of
It's a
disenchanted
commitment.
with television. Exactly. But the 2 that really stick out in my head are Scott Pilgrim Takes Off and kind of the surprise final season of Hilda. Did you end
Really?
up watching any of the
I
Scott
thought-
Pilgrim?
I thought you were gonna. I thought for sure you'd say Loki.
Yeah, but I figure we were going to talk about Disney separately, so I can,
Okay.
like, you know, reference that on its own.
I recognize Hilda. Like, I recognize the art style and everything. I'm not familiar with it at all. I couldn't tell you what it's supposed to be about.
Yeah, it's It's fascinating. So Hilda is kind of like vaguely Scandinavian in terms of
I
its
get that
like
vibe.
setting and world. So it's like modern day, but with like fantasy stuff on the outskirts that everyone kind of s- mostly acknowledges. Like, for example, the main conflict for most of the series is between humans and trolls. Trolls freeze into solid rock during the day and are really weak to sound, so people will go out and put little bells on them when they're asleep. So then when they wake up, they just get completely neutralized by like constant ringing noise. Anyway, Hilda and her mom live in this cute little cottage out in the wilderness around all these elves. Elves in this universe being very tiny, so the joke is they keep stepping on them. But
Okay.
anyway, they have to move to the big city, and it's kind of just like an episodic series. Like, it's very episodic, especially the first season, of just like kind of a new mystical creature they have to deal with every week. It's the Thunderbird or the Black Hound or like some kind of water dragon. And I sincerely thought the series was over already because they did 2 seasons. The season 2 ends on this cliffhanger where she like swaps minds with a troll. She becomes a troll,
Okay.
and the troll kid becomes a human kid. And then they do a movie called Hilda and the Mountain King, which is like direct one for one with one of the books. Like, because there's a lot of the books, and like they a bunch of the episodes are based off these specific books, but they also make their own stories.
Right.
And I was like, this feels like a perfect sort of summation of the series. Like, I love the series for a number of reasons, but I always liked it's like how it discusses like our relationship with nature and our relationship with ecosystems. Like the whole initial conflict is the elves want them to move away from their cottage because they keep stepping on them. And
Right.
in the process of like negotiating peace, Hilda accidentally wakes up a giant. Most of the giants left thousands of years ago during like Viking times, and the troll just steps on their or the giant just steps on their house. And Hilda appreciates like, oh, there are like so many tiers to the world.
Right.
And the finale, The Mountain King, kind of is about that because it's about them grappling with like, well, why are the trolls the way they are? Why are we the way we are? Why, is there something here that we're misunderstanding about like why we are at war here? But yeah, then they do another like season that just kind of goes into a lot of like extra lore, creates an entire new like another new ecosystem for them all to explore. And yeah, it ended up being charming, cute, and like truly one of the better finales I've seen to a series in a while that felt like it really understood the assignment and like culminated everything kind of beautifully. And Scott Pilgrim
Wait, what's
was
that
another
on? Netflix?
Netflix.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they're like 20-minute episodes. It's
Okay.
breezy, the color styles are gorgeous, the music
Yeah.
is soothing. It's like a good lullaby series, too. Like, it was Bluey for me before Bluey, but
Oh, wow.
higher intensity.
Right.
There's one episode in season 4 that goes 0 to, oh, we're so fucked. So quickly, I genuinely thought I accidentally hit the 10-second skip mark, or like,
Oh.
I got too distracted.
Right.
Like, it goes so gonzo so fast. Which works as an adjective, but also as Gonzo the whatever the hell from Muppets, because he's always
Yeah.
getting into crazy situations.
Exactly. That's what happens when your nose is like a hooky thing.
Yeah. It's a coat hanger or an umbrella.
Exactly. You get
Oh,
hooked
God,
onto things
what-
and swung around in the air by it.
How have they never done that joke before where someone tries to use them as an umbrella? Is that just too graphic?
I feel like that anatomically like wouldn't work without like break. Like if you think about that aerodynamically, I don't think you can turn him upside down by his nose. But it does look like an umbrella.
Yeah, that's fair. Anyway, Scott Pilgrim Takes Off ended up being kind of like it's so interesting seeing the reaction because like this was one I watched all of before I really read anybody's reaction, so I genuinely didn't know anything about it. My only thing was just like, why are they calling it Scott Pilgrim Takes Off? Is it just going to be the first 2 books adapted? Is it going to be like just the first book? Like the first book is a little too short to be adapted into 8 episodes. That would be a bit of a stretch. Like, and the marketing very much kind of low-key sold it as like, hey, it's another adaptation of the story you like where, we're going to have more room to breathe because it's a series, so we'll be able to do all the stuff we didn't get to do in the movie. Like, because the movie just has to carve out so much to make all 6 books fit in terms of,
Right.
like, even just timeline. Like, the books take place over, like, a year plus. The movie's, like, all week.
Oh man.
And So the very first, and I'm not going to spoil anything because you really should go in as cold as possible. Like if you have any passing interest in Scott Pilgrim, I would say watch the movie and then watch the first episode of this series and see how you feel. Like the first episode is a pretty faithful adaptation of the first book, pretty much beat for beat. Like a couple changes here and there to set up like the greater world and like get you in, like stuff for fans. But then the final scene takes a hard right pivot into something completely new, and you kind of realize, oh, the title Scott Pilgrim takes off is because this is effectively a new book in the series. Like,
Oh.
hey, what if Brian Lee O'Malley made a seventh book?
Jeez.
And
Okay.
it was so interesting capturing the discourse because it really was like, on one hand, I ended up loving that because it's like, I've already seen this done. Like,
Yeah.
I've seen this done in a video game, I've seen this done in the books, I've seen this done in the movie, I've seen this done in the colored adaptation of the book. That there's a very funny joke in the original books where Ramona, it's like, in the second book, Ramona has like dyed her hair and she's like, yeah, I dye my hair every couple of weeks, man. It's not a big deal. And Scott says something like, is that your natural hair color? And she's like, oh, I'm not sure. And then it just has a little note in the corner, no, this book is in black and white.
Yeah.
And then when they do the colored version of it, they have to change that joke because it doesn't work anymore. So
Right.
it just says, no, this book was originally in black and white.
That's funny.
But yeah, and like for me, it's great. And like I like how candid Brian Lee O'Malley was. He was like, look, when I was writing those books, I was the main character's age. I was going through all of this stuff. Well, like kind of going through the same emotional arcs. He wasn't dating a high schooler, fortunately. And yeah, he was like, he talked about these were the emotions I was feeling at the time. Whereas now I'm like a grown man. I've gotten divorced. I've like been through things. And
Yeah.
like I have different feelings about all of these characters and like the world I created.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, that's why you bothered to do new adaptations. Bring
Right.
like people back to really pause and reflect on what they accomplished or what they think now.
Right. Right.
But at the same time,
Okay.
I also empathize with people who straight up like, look, the marketing
people hate
didn't
this?
lie. No. There's polarizing opinions on it, just like in terms of like the marketing, really, because the marketing
Oh.
kind of presented it as like a straight-faced adaptation of the material, and
Yeah, they
A lot of
they
people
presented
kinda
it
just
like
feel
a
like they were
class
misled.
reunion.
yeah, that kind of was it. Especially because so much of the marketing was built around. Can you believe we got the entire
Chris
original
Evans.
cast back?
Yeah.
And yeah, and like I empathize with people who genuinely want that because like if someone someone summed it up great once, it's like, yeah, if a movie sells you dog, but then at the end of the movie they go, surprise, it's an elephant. Like a lot of people sincerely just would have wanted the dog, and I can't
Right.
really blame those people. But at
Right.
the same time, I'm glad so many of those people at least appreciate it for what it is, especially because for me it's like I don't know, it's just nice to see a version of this timeline where all the characters get happier endings. Like, there's like room to appreciate like why everyone is the way they are and like kind of just get a better turn of events for them all.
Right.
Are there any other series you want to talk about?
Well, let's see. I guess we can. Wait, did we watch Echo this year or last year?
No, that was this year, 2024.
Oh man, was it somebody said to me like
Right? That's my problem with Percy Jackson. I was like, I'll talk about fuck.
somebody, my hairdresser said to me the other day like this January felt like 2 months, and like
Oh, you're telling me.
it did.
I
I
couldn't
don't
leave
know.
my house for 10 of those days.
Like this felt like for whatever reason the longest month. I don't know why. And then February is we're just gonna blink and miss it like we always do. But yeah, so I guess that's why it's all like running together. Well, I didn't watch, but it takes me a lot. Oddly enough, I'm one of those people that's like, I've got all but one of the streaming services that I subscribe to. Like, I've bought into all of them, and truly, I don't have the bandwidth to watch shows that much, watch anything that much. Do you know what I mean? I don't think
I
anybody
completely
really does.
understand.
Actually,
Well, that's why I hate the binge model. I'm like, this is unsustainable for the human brain.
right? Yeah, exactly. It was, and that's a good point. It's it was sustainable when we were stuck indoors, when we had nothing to do and nowhere to go for a whole calendar year.
or even when it was just Netflix, where it's like, yeah,
Right.
one of these, we're getting one of these every 2 months. Now
Right.
you're getting one from Warner Brothers, you're getting one from Disney, you're getting one from Paramount, and you're
Right.
getting one from Netflix.
Right. So you're getting two from each of those, like, at the same time. So I am just like, I struggle to, there's all these
I
shows
think
that I
you
like
described it as
wanna
object
watch.
permanence.
Yes, yeah. It's a combination of like object permanence and then like of just like truly forgetting that things exist. Like I like every time you've been like, have you watched Loki yet? You're reminding me that Loki exists. Because
Well,
I just
gotta
forget.
show up at your house with a knife and be like, "Hey,
Sit down.
So,
It's
how's
time
that,
to
Loki?"
watch. It's time to watch Loki. So otherwise, I did visit Sopranos for the first time. Well, okay. My partner and I, we are like, we have a trade-off where like I have to
You better be
watch
getting something
The
real nice in that
Sopranos.
trade-off.
What?
You better be getting something like. Look, I know Sopranos is good.
It is
and
a
has,
trade-off.
like, it's popular for a reason, but like
Yeah.
to
I
just
don't
indulge yourself in that.
I am like at this point, listen, like I had no interest in watching Sopranos on my own. I didn't need any proof that it was good. Like I
Right?
respect
You can
it.
it's like The Office. You can just trust that
I respect
like this many people
its
can't be wrong, right?
accomplishments. Right. I respect the brand. Like I didn't need any personal proof that this was good, but here I go. Now this is somebody who like loves it and wants me to watch it. And I was like, well, fine, you have to watch the thing that I love, which is Mad Men. That's my Sopranos, but white collar.
Okay,
Like-
but like, see, now I'm being see. This is where I'm being a two-faced son of a bitch because I'm like, well, you should just watch Mad Men. Come on,
Right,
What
exactly.
are we
like
doing here?
I saw one episode of Sopranos.
I
and
realize
was
I'm like unironically doing what he's doing, but
right. Well, he showed me the first episode of The Sopranos, and I was like, "That's it. You're watching Mad Men. Like, if you like this, you have to watch Mad Men. They're identical shows, really. Like, just like in different
Right.
time periods. Again, blue collar
except Don
and white
Draper
collar.
didn't kill anyone. Well, I guess he was in Vietnam. Maybe he killed someone, but
He didn't
I don't
kill
know. It
any.
didn't seem like he got very
No.
far there.
He did worse things in his own way.
Yeah.
He really did. Anyway, so that's all of the TV show watching that I've been doing
God, that is
in
it
2020.
is very funny though, because I'm like, my big ex made me watch The Office. I didn't get any trade off. Like I got her to watch maybe 2 episodes of We Bear Bears, but she wasn't sitting down and watching that all the way through.
You want to know
and-
what I'm in a relationship right now. It's actually kind of funny. Of like, we have like a list of movies and TV shows that's like, I want you to watch this, and we're like, no, I'm never gonna watch that. So it's like anytime we make a bet about something, I'm like, you're watching Studio Ghibli. Like we have one queued up for like, if that's something he doesn't want to watch, but
That's it.
like
We're putting Porco
every
Rosso on in the
time-
background of your birthday. I don't care.
Every-
It's just gonna be on the TV.
every time we have like a wager or a bet, like it's always a movie or a TV show that's like on the line of like, if I
That's so
win,
funny.
you have to watch this.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
my version of that with my current partner is like Avatar and Owl House, but it's like, at least with Avatar, I'm like, yeah, I guess I can say that. I finally started watching Avatar. The
Oh,
Last
I was about to
Airbender,
say, I was
not-
like, wait, she hadn't watched Avatar?
no,
That
I
surprised
like the
me.
Avatar movies.
It's you that hadn't seen the show or hadn't. Okay,
Uh-uh. Yeah, I remember we grew up when it was coming out. We grew up
Yeah.
with the hype because Nickelodeon was pushing that puppy. I really do think they were just
Yeah.
like, look,
They're
we
like,
need
this
to-
is our
we need
serious show.
something that Cartoon Network doesn't have.
yeah,
Like,
we need
what
a
is the
drama.
closest thing they have to this? Yeah, kind of. Yeah, because like Samurai Jack, I guess is kind of close in terms of like action, slightly anime adjacent, animated series. Well, that's redundant. Animated, but
Anime, yeah,
but it's completely different art style, completely different
right. It's a
vibe,
different tone.
like-
yeah,
Yeah, it's a pretty different tone. They're both surprisingly like humorous, but like in
yeah, they're
different ways.
playful. Like Avatar is very playful.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah,
Yeah, where it's like, but it's different because like Samurai Jack himself is kind of like the straight man who just keeps like being like, huh, this is a weird situation. Like, he gets
Right,
into
he
a comedy
is
of
the straight
manners
man.
with a Scotsman who wants to cross a bridge. Whereas like in Avatar, Aang is the like kind of a comedy
Avatar
character. The
is a
joke is
kids.
he's dangerous, but like fumbly.
It's a kids show that like is somehow kind of religious. Like
Yeah,
that's like that's you know.
yeah, it's like I get it. I get it. You know, I don't think I ever didn't get it because I've seen clips of Avatar.
Yeah.
I know how it ends. I've seen the moments. I got it. It's just like again, it's like time, energy,
Yeah.
and like I don't know. Also, it's just funny because because the live action series is just coming out and everyone's like bracing for impact. It's what is the meme of the guy looking back? Here it comes.
Yeah.
But I digress. Shall we get into kind of like the big talking point for us, Disney?
Oh yeah, let's get into it. Disney. I think we had a fun year with Disney. That's when we really dove into the 100.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like for the people who are talking about like who had the worst 100-year anniversary, Disney or Warner Brothers,
Warner
and I'm
Brothers.
like, yeah, it's got to be Warner Brothers because like it felt accident. Like if you told me it was their 99th year, I would believe you because it's
Right.
like there was no build up, there's no pomp, there was no circumstance. Like it's so interesting because for all the negativity around the movies with Disney, like I don't think anyone argues that the actual 100 celebration stuff wasn't kind of good.
Right, exactly. Or that it didn't feel like it matched like the pomp and circumstance of the event, as we like to say.
Right, like because they made that incredible exhibit, they did
Yeah.
there's so many like little ads and like little clips they did.
All of their
Like, every
merch
single one of
got
the
the
little-
100 treatment.
Yeah. All of the little like 100-year anniversary sort of like clips and montages they did were all great. Like I really do think like that serves as like a solid like is kind of the support pillar for this entire year. Which for me with Disney, I would just describe it as like it felt like you know, a part of it is the strike really was a damper on everything in Disney, and it kind of got left holding the bag and being the face of it for a number of reasons. But also, I really do think this is the year, sort of this era of Disney came to a head in terms of like base hits but less home runs, if that makes sense.
I think I know what you mean, yeah.
Because like as I skim over like the films I saw from Disney this year,
Yeah. Remind me of what came out this year. Elemental, was that this year?
yeah, just going over some of them, it's Quantumania,
Oh.
Peter Pan and Wendy, and I'm mostly focusing on Walt Disney, not Fox. Guardians of the Galaxy 3,
Oh.
Little Mermaid. Yes, that's the one home run. That's the one where it's
Whiplash.
like up to bat. And you can kind of I feel like we can really easily explain why that one was like the grand slam. Elemental, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, Haunted Mansion, Marvels, and then Wish were all of like the big Disney releases.
So that was like mostly live action then, right? Okay.
Right.
How did I forget about Guardians of the Galaxy? I think, like, as much as I loved that movie, I think I erased it from my brain.
It's a little much. It's a little overwhelming.
It's much. Like, he really didn't have to do all that to us, but he did.
He done did do it. But yeah, and like that's the example of what I mean because that is like a grand slam home run, and so
Yeah.
much of that is because it was like a handful of very specific creative people kind of just getting to let cook. Like I do think at times the whole like executive meddling discourse kind of just feels like we're talking in circles. Like what you know, I don't like. You know, because we're talking about, like, ideas. We're talking about hazy things, not specific tangible problems with any individual movie.
Right.
But I do think there's something to this idea of just, like, yeah, sometimes you just kind of have to let someone cook. Like, Quantumania
Right.
isn't terrible, but it's a movie that feels like a lot of people had a lot of opinions on it. And by the time the release date was going to come out, they kind of just had to commit to what they had.
Right.
Like, I feel that way with Wish a little bit, too. I feel that way a little bit with Haunted Mansion in particular very much feels that way. And you realize, like, if you want a better explanation of what studio meddling means, it's just like Disney has gotten it so down to a science on how to make like a solid B minus B range movie that like they're never going to have a film as bad as John Carter of Mars again.
Yeah.
But they're going to have a lot fewer Curse of the Black Pearls, if that makes sense.
Right.
I-
Yeah.
I actually
Their
wanna
job
do a
is to
whole-
make movies that most people like, and like that's good enough.
Right. Like, it's so, and I know we're so done with Star Wars talk. Like, I know that was our whole, like,
Yeah,
that was one of our
it's
silent
Jover.
vow. That's like, one of the big things that happened last year was we decided we were done talking about Star Wars.
Swore off all Star Wars. We're done.
Yes, we got it all out of our system.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, like, I think there's something to be said about the fact that The Last Jedi is basically the only Star Wars film ever that was basically a perfect shoot in terms of, like, there weren't any fights on set, there weren't any dramatic changes to the script at the 11th hour or during shooting, there was no kind of calamitous, horrible accident like Harrison Ford getting his leg smushed in the Millennium Falcon doors. Like,
Right.
you know, there wasn't any, like, the studio wants something different. There was no, like, director getting cut at the 11th hour or screenwriter getting cut at the 11th hour. Like, it was the one time where everyone from pre-production to post-production to, PR were like, here's the vision of the film, here's what we're going for, let's just commit and get through it. And critically, it was one of the most beloved Star Wars films of all time, but a small group on the internet caused such a meltdown that it seems to have scared Disney out of ever letting that happen ever again.
Right. Right.
Which is emblematic of Rise of Skywalker. That is like a film where clearly they had there was no one person who was like, this is what the film is.
had the
This is what we're
balls.
doing. Let's go. Yeah. Basically, who had Ryan Johnson's big old pair of clackers to be like, oh no. Christ.
All right.
Why? Who had his big old no?
Paragon.
Who was able to turn around and say, "No, guys, this is what we're going for here."
Right. Right.
So as a result, like, because hey, if you let, because at the end of the day, Justin Simeon, like for Haunted Mansion, he made Sorry to Bother You, which is a film that is very much a guy just getting let to cook. I imagine he could be let cooked a Haunted Mansion movie that was even better, but like, they don't want to risk that, because what if people don't like it? What if the internet gets
Right.
mad at us? We can't have that.
Right.
And I think that's the one thing that, like, holds some of these films back, that I think can hold Wish back, that it holds Haunted Mansion back, that holds Quantum Mania back. Like, you have to be okay with something just sucking, you know? I
Yeah.
think that's, like, a big moral for this period of Disney as we get into, like... Because, like, at the end of the day, there are plenty of timelines where Barbie basically has all the same elements and it just doesn't click with critics, or...
Right.
Like, Poor Things doesn't get a lot of awards.
Right.
Or, there's plenty of timelines like that. But wouldn't it be better to risk that than not let it happen?
Yeah.
Like,
I
not
would
let
agree.
the good timeline happen?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. In terms of Marvel film, or, like, Disney films, I think The Marvels is kind of the one that just stands out to me as, like,
Right.
kind of the big one for me, because I'm like, this is more what we should be going for. This is much closer to, like, again, what we were just saying, where it's like, yeah, let someone do a musical Planet. Let someone
Right.
be silly and irreverent and, like, have a fun tone. Like, cut
Yeah.
loose a little bit. Let them be, let something be a smaller, more, like, group project.
Right. Exactly. I would agree.
It's kind of the underrated one from this, and, like, we're going to talk, like, superlatives at the end of this, but, like, the film that really struck out to me that I really wish got more play, Peter Pan and Wendy.
Okay, we've talked about this before. Now, I didn't watch this, and admittedly, I am feeling some Peter Pan fatigue over the years. Like, I feel like every 3 to 4 years, they're like, "Do you want another Peter Pan movie?"
Yeah.
And we're like,
"Hey,"
"No!"
just grab you by the shirt. Yeah. Too bad. Well, you can, Tinkerbell. They just drag you across the street.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, please.
No, please
Like,
have a
it's the-
family. Yeah.
I'm just imagining the bit from Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2 where, like, the lady's getting dragged away by the tentacles and she's, like, her nail is so
Digging.
deep it's picking up marble. As you go into you just see the light from, like, the movie screen in the background.
Right.
Yeah, but no, this one kind of fucking rules. Like, I can't believe they didn't put this in theaters. It's David Lowery, who is all you need to know about him is he often has a shaved head, but has the thickest possible mustache. He looks like someone who makes artisanal beers when he's not making movies.
Oh, is he a hipster?
Yes, I'm afraid to say that,
Damn
but
it.
he is. He did Pete's Dragon back in 2016. He did A Ghost Story, which is like that movie where Casey Affleck just wears all of the ghosts wear sheets.
Oh, okay. Oh, that sounds
Like they
familiar.
go for that level of kind of like indie filmmaking.
Yeah.
Old Man and the Gun, which was really good. Green Knight, which I wouldn't shut up about for a little bit.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, it's kind of like one of the it's just like I enjoy Little Mermaid more than most people, but like to have a version of this era of Disney live action remakes sort of like have more like have tangible sets and tangible stunts and like wire work and like like probably like 70-30 practical to CGI is so refreshing and like so nice. Like it does a pretty good job of leaning into like the hijinks of it all. Like Wonderland is supposed to be it's supposed to be the heightened form of all of these boy things,
Neverland?
Like, yeah. It's like the ultimate kids hangout place.
You called it Wonderland.
Oh. Like possibly best embodied by like the scene where we first get to see the crocodile. It's not a crocodile, it's a dinosaur. It's huge. And I'm like, yes, yeah.
Right.
Woo! Like all the performances are great. Like I had very little faith in Jude Law as Captain Hook, but he actually brings the right amount of hamminess. It very much feels like someone who really loved the movie Hook and was like, what if we show what that version of Neverland was like before Peter grew up?
Right.
That's probably the best way I could describe it. So if you liked Hook, I would say give this a chance.
Okay.
There's one scene at the very end. There are two scenes at the very end involving Wendy and Tinkerbell that actually like really, really got me, and I am genuinely shocked haven't been in an adaptation of this material before because it feels like such an obvious, clean, perfect sort of like character culmination for both of them.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
I think I described it to you as like, oh, this is an actual movie.
Right. You did. You were like,
said this was
wait a
supposed to be a
minute.
movie?
This is a movie.
This is a cinema picture with thrills and chills and spills and kills. What are we doing here, people? But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like we're both a little higher on Disney's year than most, right?
I think so. I'd say so.
And I guess it's difficult because it's like, you want it to be a perfect year for the Disney 100, and it's a little messy, but in a messy way that you can understand from a studio in transition, kind of.
I'd say so.
I mean, if I was really, I don't know, if I was Disney, I would have, like, at least considered pushing some of these movies out, spreading the releases once the strike started and going, actually, we're celebrating the 100 from October to next October, because that's when the company was founded. And everyone's like, well, then why were you selling all the merch early? Shut up.
Shit. Yeah. Don't worry about it.
I mean, what's amazing is a lot of underrated stuff really came from Fox this year. That Flaming Hot movie, The Crater, which I don't think was very good, but like I appreciate that they put the money toward a big sci-fi movie. Haunting in Venice, which I'm like, Kenneth Branagh, if you want to basically be parallel to Rian Johnson and his big clonkakukas, and just spend the rest of your life making detective movies in hammier and hammier mustaches, then sir, that is a noble way to spend your life. Yeah. That is the most honorable way a man can spend his life. And again, what's kind of funny about like I guess the catch-22 of like Disney owning Fox is like Poor Things is technically a Disney movie.
Yeah, that feels fundamentally wrong, but, here we are.
Yeah, but that's the point. That's why you get Fox Searchlight, so you can have these movies. Like, if the Disney company itself doesn't really have room for them, well, Fox does.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, and I guess, like, I don't know. And I guess I'm a little underwhelmed by the release schedule next year. They pushed Snow White back to 2025 for some reason. They pushed Brave New World back. I feel like we've been talking
about this movie for a long time.
Because we have.
Ugh, I'm over it. I'm over it before it's even happened.
I feel so, and I'm so excited for it though because it's like Mark Webb, who I've just wanted to get to do something other than Spider-Man, and Greta Gerwig and Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot, which was way more exciting when they originally announced it.
Right, I'm sure.
And this poor Twitter account, Snow White Updates, who I guess is a Rachel Zegler stan, is like, oh, this Disney event's coming up, maybe they'll show the trailer, and then the next day they announce moved back to 2025, and she just goes, I'm gonna Minecraft myself.
Yeah.
She's been keeping that account going for like 3 years. But yeah, next year is like Inside Out 2, Deadpool 3. That's kind of it. There's really not a lot of... Man, the strike really did screw a lot of things up for them, didn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I never
But
thought
can't
about
say they
that,
didn't
that
bring it on
like,
themselves.
that the strike would result in like long-term delays, like not even just like, oh, things were quiet for a couple months and then it went back to normal. Like, no, it takes years to make these films.
Yeah.
And so it's like the
Anything.
result is like we're gonna have like a dead year.
Yeah, which is so funny because we had a dead year in 2020, then we just had this glut of releases. Like, if you think things are oversaturated, it's like, well, they weren't necessarily putting things in movies for a year and a half, were they now?
Right.
And now we're in another glut where it's like Inside Out 2, Deadpool 3, allegedly an alien movie, and Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I've realized Planet of the Apes as a franchise is kind of like the Avatar movies, like the Blue Alien ones, where it's like everyone kind of just forgets about them when there's not one directly in their face, but then one comes out and it's like, oh shit, these are awesome.
Right.
Except the difference is Planet of the Apes movies come out every 4 years as opposed to like 10. It's on like a double. It's on double time, so it gets a little more play. And by all accounts, like I will say, like people have talked about, it's like, you know, the one trailer that's been in every single movie that gets great reactions, Planet of the Apes, and I'm like, this movie's gonna make way more money than they're expecting.
Oh man. See, Planet of the Apes is one of the like I forget that like people are still interested in like monsters.
Right.
You know, it's like Godzilla style monsters.
Right, like people kind of just like big adventures with cool creatures.
Yeah.
Like in this case, uber photorealistic monkeys and apes and
Smart
orangutans
monkeys,
and
yeah.
gorillas. Yeah, smart monkeys.
Yeah.
Smart apes.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. That trailer for me just plays like gangbusters because you're not 100% sure what it is beforehand, and then you see a monkey talking and just like, yes, and it's also like they're going full sci-fi with it now because like the original, like in terms of these new ones, the first 3 are like relatively grounded. Like the monkeys don't really talk a lot. They know a couple words and mostly communicate through like sign. So like now they're just going all in. It's like the monkeys are people now. They just look like monkeys.
You know
I'm
what?
just like,
The monkeys are people.
yeah, the fun part of this franchise. Yeah.
That's
Woo!
funny.
Woo! Somebody get me a fucking Statue of Liberty. Woo! Just doing the wave,
Right.
ripping my hair out. Yes. Ah! Okay, that's enough of that. Ow! Actually, hurt my elbow on that one. But yeah, as we're kind of wrapping up our recap of the year, we kind of had a handful of like sort of superlatives we wanted to give out.
Yeah.
So, first one, best film from this year. Do I have to ask?
All right, give me a minute.
It was a good year.
It was a good year for films. But I think it's Barbie.
Oh, that's controversial. The discourse, Nicole. The discourse.
Listen, I'm trying not to give Barbie that award. Like, I don't know why. That's dumb. But, like, I think it was the film event of the year. Even slightly more than Oppenheimer. Like, I'm not even making a comment on, like, Barbie, like, the quality of Barbie.
Right.
Just as in, like, you know, everything that Nicole Kidman says in her speech? Okay. Like, she gives, like, this movie gives...
a cry? It's been too long. I've forgotten the lines, Sydney.
Barbie gives purpose to Nicole Kidman's speech. It gives legitimacy.
You're not wrong.
Right? It's a place where we come together.
It really is like, it, and you're kind of going by my approach to awards of like, at the end of the year, what story do we want to tell? And I'm
Yeah.
like, I can't think of a more emblematic sort of moment than like that the dance scene from Barbie. Like when I close my eyes and think 2023, either that or Closer I Am to Find,
Yeah.
or them rollerblading. Like there's so many little moments from Barbie where I'm like, that's just
Right.
the year.
Right.
Or
Exactly.
like Ryan Gosling ripping off his like fall leather or like fur
Faux.
coat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His mink or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yes. Mine is still Asteroid City. For me, it is like
Yeah.
a different kind of culmination of the year, a culmination of the last few years, and sort of one of the most quietly thoughtful films I've seen in a long time that distracts you with its silliness before you really are forced to think about what it means.
I was just gonna say it's like well, it goes without saying that I am like a biased voter here, but I mean like if I were to have like if you were to allot yourself like a budget for movie going, like I blew over it twice all on Barbie. Just
You maniac.
I didn't have time to see any other movie this year.
That's really funny. You're not wrong. I
Right?
knew I recorded every single watching you did. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, again?
Yeah, I'm like
I mean,
just on a
again, if there's
tally.
any person who's the authority on this, it's you. You know
Right.
the Barbie. You lived the Barbie.
Right, I did.
Best series, which I guess, like, how
Oh.
many series did you see?
Well, I really enjoyed Echo. Oh wait, fuck, that was this year. Listen,
Damn.
my year starts in February.
You're right. It's arbitrary.
Okay, hold on, wait. I can give a real answer.
Why do we listen to a bunch of Romans on how a calendar should work? They're all dead.
Right.
What did they achieve?
Nothing.
Couldn't stop some British barbarians from breaking all their shit?
No. Yeah. Okay, well what's yours gonna be?
Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, because for me it's
Oh.
like, one, like, even the parts of it that were just straight out to adaptation were very fun and, like, colorful and vibrant and what you would hope for. But to then elevate it and make it something even more thoughtful and, like, reflective on, like, honestly, the people who grew up with Scott Pilgrim being formative for them, it's like growing up with the series. It's kind of like, incredible in that way.
Yeah. When I really think about it actually now, I think for me it might be Cake and Fiona. Did I say that right?
Fiona and Cake.
Fiona and Cake, damn it.
You think
I
a
quit
lady named
podcasting.
Cake named her cat Fiona?
Well, why not? It's all arbitrary.
I mean, I do.
Well, I thought maybe the Cake was more important than Fiona. Maybe Cake is the lead character and Fiona's the sidekick.
I mean, that's kind of where it ends up at the end of the series.
Come on now. Yeah.
Although, in terms of iconic moments from this year, I can't deny that the sequence where, like, Marshall and, I forget what the guy version of Princess Bubblegum is. They're, like, hanging out, and he's, like, showing off all the pastries he's made as Fiona and Cake violently murder pastry creatures.
Right.
But because they're pastries, you can show them getting their eyes gouged out.
Right, exactly.
There's no consequence to that.
Yes.
Most underrated film of the year.
Underrated. Well, the Marvels. No. TMNT? I feel like I have a lot to say in this category. That's tough.
Right. I guess it's relative to how you view underrated, because,
Right.
Turtles got great reviews and it made money. It just feels like it's kind of getting buried compared to Boy and the Heron and, like,
Yeah, exactly.
the 20 other great animated films that came out this year.
Right, that's true. Yeah. I'm torn between those two. But like you're right, like TMNT did get good reviews. So I guess I would say the Marvels.
Right. Someday it'll be appreciated as a top-tier Marvel movie, and when that happens, we will be on the throne.
It's hard to call something underrated when you know that like most of the loudest noise being made about something are like from neckbeards.
Right. Are coming from a disingenuous place.
Yes,
Or
exactly.
coming from a place that kind of decided what their story was going to be before it was written.
Right, exactly.
For me, I would probably... I would say Peter Pan, but I'm actually going to say Little Mermaid on this one. I think Little
That's a good
Mermaid
one.
helped me appreciate like what the best like the I softened to the whole live action remake thing because I appreciate like if we're going to say Disney tales are classic, if we're going to put them in like the pantheon of great stories, then like great stories, you know, there's an understanding that every like 10 years or so, someone will make a new adaptation of it. How many Hamlets have we gotten in this decade alone? Or not Hamlets, Macbeths. For some reason, there's way more Macbeths. Like, even just off the top of my head, in the last like 5 years, we had the Denzel one and the Michael Fassbender one. Like, it's not that weird to think like Disney sort of classic tales can be applied in the same logic. And when they're done with a clearer artistic vision, like when they're done with like someone having a specific energy, I think it pays off. Like again, I really appreciate that Robbie Marshall came in with this approach of like, oh, it's going to be like a classic sort of Hollywood show, complete with the spiral staircase for Under the Sea. Like, just little flourishes like that give it so much more personality over something like Beauty and the Beast. And just, again, having two, like, really great performers in the central leads justifies it for me.
Right.
Am I saying it's a great film? No, but I'm just saying it's an underrated film.
Yeah, I would agree.
And best performance.
All right. Honestly, it's Ryan Gosling.
Yeah. I do. See, the discourse disappoints me only because I feel like it does a disservice to how good Ryan Gosling is. Where I'm like, this just doesn't work if he isn't like this.
Right. It is, well, first of all, like, all of Barbie is perfect casting. And, like, Margot Robbie is a Barbie doll. Like, it's, like, you know, I'm voting for Ryan Gosling, like, not to, like, again, this is the Oscars thing. Like, Margot Robbie would absolutely be deserving of, like, a Best Performance award for this. But it's like, damn, this is, like,
right,
quintessential.
It's so gonzo. It's so, like, it's so maximalist. It embodies everything that's good about the movie in terms of, like, being maximalist.
Yeah.
About having 1,000 things to say and somehow making it all relatively coherent.
Yeah.
In terms of, like, the childishness of his role, while not underselling, like, no, he actually has real emotions here.
Yeah.
And he fucking sings.
He sings, he dances.
Like, yeah. It was going to be peak before he decided to do a show-stopping, like, end of Act
Broadway
3 musical number.
Yeah.
But then he decides to do it. And it's even better.
Right, exactly.
And you know what's so funny? Out of all the songs on the soundtrack, other than Dance the Night, the one I weirdly play the most is Push. Because I'm just like...
Because his performance in that is so camp.
Right.
Like,
that is all performance.
Like, what? Yeah. That is incredible.
It's when he gets to the...
Yeah.
He's doing that, like, 2000s butt rock, like, weird mumble shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Again, we had to rewatch that movie because we are talking about it because, of course, we're talking about it on the main feed. But, like...
Obviously.
Even, like... You just like, man, it's every fucking second he's doing something hilarious or great.
Right.
Just like...
He's on
well,
the
he's
entire
waiting
time.
for Barbie to figure out where this kid is, and he's just going like, oh, I don't have anything to do. And you're like, look at this child.
Right.
No, that's a great call. And I'm going with another one that feels a little obvious. Lily Gladstone from Killers of the Flower Moon. It's not the showiest performance. I think someone tried to dismiss it by being like, she just sits in a bed for a huge chunk of it. And it's like, she has so much ground to cover in this story as being both like a victim, part detective, and part like tragic figure in the story. Honestly, like her being like in and out of the story is a part of like the theme of the movie. Because famously, like, are you familiar with what Killers of the Flower Moon is about?
No.
So, like, several native tribes got pushed all the way up into the Osage County. Basically, like, the most useless piece of land in the entire United States. Oklahoma reservations, like, there's nothing there. Jokes on the white people. Turns out they were sitting on one of the biggest oil reserves in the country, which, because this is like the turn of the century, is now the most useful resource anyone can have.
Right.
And awkwardly, the white people have to come back and be like, hey, so it results in all these families becoming super wealthy, but being dependent on sort of white or court-appointed legal guardians because, like, you know, natives at this time are still deemed incompetent. So
right.
it creates a situation where Lily plays Molly Burkhart. Her whole thing is her family has access to one of these oil reserves, and their sort of guardian is this guy named William Hale, known as the King. Sort of this white guy who I compared him to Kingpin in the sense of, like, you know, he plays nice and he, like, looks over everything, but everyone goes through him for anything. And her, like, most times in the story, William sort of systematically killing off all of her siblings to basically make sure all of this money gets funneled toward him. Like, you know, to the point where he's, like, lacing her insulin with heroin.
Oh, shit.
Both to possibly kill her, but also, like, you know, just keep her from figuring out the very obvious criminal conspiracy that's happening all around her. Yeah, most versions of the story focus on him, the truly horrific things he, like, orchestrated, and the fact that this was, like, an early story that justified the existence of the FBI. This is, like, right when organized crime was picking up, so, like, you know, this was right around when they're like, okay, we need one national body that sort of can, like, you know, for state, you know, multiple state crimes, we can kind of just take jurisdiction because, like, local authorities are simply incapable of doing, like, handling the mob or, like, prohibition. And, you know, they get to the Osage County after begging for Molly and are like, okay, so this one guy is conveniently getting all of these people are dying, and conveniently all of their money is going to end up to this one guy, and local authorities refuse to do anything about it? All right, this seems like an open and shut case. And yeah, that's a part of the story that Molly gets erased from this. Like, you know, the person who lost the most and overcame the most just kind of gets written out of the story because she's native. And it is, like, the range she has to go from, like, literally on a deathbed for, like, a huge chunk of the movie to actually being in a relationship with Leo DiCaprio and constantly going against William Hale. Robert De Niro in a hell of a performance. He is so evil in this movie. It is such a great performance from him. I didn't know he was capable of this anymore. Like, the sheer malice in that man. He, like, again, we talked about the Kingpin thing. It's like Kingpin, but he's not physically threatening. So it becomes even more insidious and creepy.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I just think in terms of performances this year, just truly a masterclass, a long overdue sort of
Is she nominated for anything?
of how good she is. Yeah, she is nominated for this.
Okay.
She's been in a couple other big films that she really should have gotten nominated for before, but it's nice to see her finally. This is probably going to be her Oscar.
Wow.
Any other wrap-up thoughts? Any other superlatives you want to throw out there before we wrap up the year?
I think I'll say, like, it's, like, how nice to have an exciting year for film. This is very, this reminds me so much of 2019, of being, like, a big, exciting year with films that people were, like, going out in droves to see. Films that people were really talking about, with, like, really tight nail-biter races for awards. Like, this year is very much giving Parasite and Knives Out and all those, like, fantastic films. And I feel like that, like, I always reference 2019. I feel like that was, like, the last year before everything went dark, you know, like, but that we had, like, excitement for film. I feel like people, well, I don't know, maybe people have never had this, but it's like there's a certain level of, like, film literacy that people have in like, various levels. I don't know if streaming has offered more or less of that.
See, I wish I could say yes, but the fact that, like, so many people's film criticism... Yeah, you'd think yes, but at the same time, it's like so much of our film discourse, and this was talking about the YouTube thing. Like, I talked about this enough, so I didn't want to have it too much in this yearly recap, but so much of Disney's problem is just, like, CinemaSins-y discourse
Yeah.
hurts them in particular, and they don't really have a good counter for that. It's like,
Right.
YouTube gets so flooded with so much bad faith criticism, or just, like, willfully illiterate criticism that focuses on hyper-literalism over, like, art, that it just really cripples people's ability to evaluate art, basically.
Right. Exactly.
And that's disappointing because, like, with so many resources, we should be able to have such a more robust conversation with our art. And
But it's like, I think movies and television are the thing that people view as entertainment first and art second. And
yeah, I mean that's the big problem with streaming. It refers to everything as content. Even
Right.
films get boiled down to a thing that I shove into my eyeballs.
Right. Exactly.
I don't think I can say balls anymore. I think I'm too traumatized from previous comments.
That was such a beautiful soundbite. It was just perfect the way you said it, and so true.
And then I realized, I'm gonna have to go away for a while after this episode.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to get a new host for a bit.
Right,
Maybe I
right.
can have a redemption tour.
Yeah,
but
you're going. Yeah, Carter's got to go to college.
yeah.
Blues Clues
Thanks,
style.
guys.
Right.
I'm gonna be bald.
But
Oh God, I don't want to lose my hair.
I think we've
all
had
I have.
a good year for the podcast, and because we've had such exciting things to watch and talk about this year.
Oh yeah, what is your favorite episode from this year, podcast wise?
Oh my goodness. Oh man, there's so much. Hold on, wait, 5 seconds for me to scroll back and look.
Well, I can say mine real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think the D&D episode for me. One, because it was like so out of the box for us. It was such a fun idea to do. And for me, it was like a nice culmination of a very challenging but like creatively rewarding month.
That was a very fun episode. Yeah, that was a challenging month for us. But I think the payoff for that was great. And we had so much fun. Shout out to our friend Kevin, who is a member here. He'll probably hear this. But yeah, that was a good one. And fun. That was like my first official, I guess, like time participating in, Oh, I lost my train of thought. That was my first time participating in a D&D like game. There's so many good things. I'm scrolling back now. I'm looking at the Disney Villain Lawyers. That's
We
like one of our
fucking crushed
best
it.
ideas. Honestly, like I think Disney Channel month like was a highlight for me. Even though
Oh yeah.
we had
It felt like we really figured something out that time around.
we really figured something out. Like I think we struck gold with SpongeBob month. Like we that was when we're like, oh, this is the cheddar. Like this is it. This is like where we're in the pocket. Like this is good. And then but Disney Channel month, I guess it just like it felt like a return to myself in a way that I had forgotten about, especially like specifically the episodes talking about High School Musical. Because that was like such a huge part of my life. Like going like, growing up, High School Musical. And like inspired so much of what I would go on to do with myself, and like the career path that I would choose was so inspired by High School Musical. I like grew up and became, a grown-up, which is overrated, but and forgot about that part of myself, and like forgot about that sort of like enthusiasm and inspiration. And so I think for me that was like a time of like being reintroduced to parts of myself that I had forgotten about. Yeah.
It's an honestly beautiful way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, as for the year as a whole, it is fascinating just because it's like, on one hand, it has been a great year. It's been a rich year for film, it's been a rich year for animation, but so much of it came with so much angst because we were, I don't want to do a disservice to the fact that we went through two pretty brutal strikes where, like,
Yeah.
truly a lot of what's gone wrong with this sort of era of filmmaking has really like become clear of like, oh, we truly are at the mercy of people who either held on to power too long or people who had no business getting power but got it because they're a part of like the Silicon Valley cabal. And that angst is really exemplar, like clear in animation, where another strike is imminent. You know, their contract ends in July, and already basically everyone's preparing. And unfortunately, the studios have also been preparing. A lot of people have talked about how they haven't been able to get work because it seems like the plan to starve them out is starting earlier this time around. And I guess all I can say about this year on that front is like, you know, you went out throwing your best punches. You went out emphatically proving your worth, and that is something to celebrate tenfold.
Yeah. Here.
Hell yeah. And until we're back here next year talking about all the cool stuff we got to see, I'm Carter.
And I'm Sydney.
Have a magical day.
Thanks for listening.